Rectal insufflation is the topic for today. It's not a very fun thing to talk about, so we're just going to hit the nail right on the head there and say rectal. But this is a pretty good therapy, so a lot of people are doing this at home because they find it to be really effective. So today we're going to show you exactly how people are doing rectal ozone therapy right in their own home. I'm Micah, the Ozonaut, teaching you how to do ozone therapy at home and find health.
Please note, this video is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be medical advice. Please seek advice from your medical practitioner before attempting anything like this or ozone therapy. Ozone therapy is considered an alternative modality and is not approved by the FDA.
So for starters, let's talk about the things that you're going to need to do rectal insufflation ozone therapy at home. First of all, the oxygen regulator and the oxygen tank, and we have another video showing you exactly how to put that together. The ozone generator, this is the Stratus 3.0 from Simply O3. You're going to need a catheter, which is the piece that's actually going to be inserted. There's the ozone bag, which is the piece that actually captures the ozone and it allows you to measure how much you have. There's a syringe, which allows for cleaning out of the catheter if you decide to do that. And then there's the silicone tubing, which is going to connect the regulator to the ozone generator. So essentially how this is going to work is that there's going to be oxygen flowing from our tank here into the ozone generator. The ozone generator has what's called a reactor at a very high frequency. This pulls the O2 apart, the oxygen. It pulls it apart, the molecules, and they recombine into O3, ozone. So it's actually a mixture of ozone and oxygen that you're going to be administering. It's going to be maybe 3% ozone with the remainder being oxygen, but that's normal. That's what you want. And there are different strengths of ozone that you can get. So there's different concentrations, and we're going to show you exactly how to get what you need. The first thing you're going to do is take your silicone tubing that you have. You take one end and you put it over what is called the barb outlet on your oxygen tank regulator. Now you have your other end, and that's going to connect to your ozone generator. So now my oxygen tank is connected to my ozone generator. And if you have this model specifically, you do want to note that one side is an oxygen inlet, and it'll say that right underneath it. The other side is a destruct, so you don't need that in this therapy. In other ones you might, but that's for neutralizing excess ozone. So I could put ozone in there and would turn it back into oxygen so that you're not breathing it. You're gonna plug your ozone generator in. It's just a standard plug right in the back there. So now it's ready to be turned on. When it's red, it's not on, it just has power in it. When it's blue, it's actually gonna be on. This is your ozone bag. This is where you're gonna actually capture the ozone. You'll notice there are 3 different readings on the bag. There's 200, 400, and 750 ml. We'll get to dosing at the end of the video, but basically nobody ever does 750 ml. The only recommended dosing by the organizations out there are 200 to 400 ml. Even though there's 750, it's usually not used for rectal insufflation. You're gonna take this part of the bag. You wanna make sure that your clamp is not clamped down. You wanna open so the ozone gas goes into the bag. We're gonna screw it right onto the ozone generator, just like that. Just needs to be finger tight. Now we're actually ready to make some ozone. So what we're gonna do is we're first gonna turn our machine on. Realize not any ozone is being made yet. So what's happening is the machine is on, but there's no oxygen running. So if there's no oxygen running through this, there's no gas to be making the ozone with. And vice versa. So if I have the machine off, but my oxygen running, although gas is running through it and would be filling up my bag, it's not going to be ozone because the reactor isn't on. So before we actually fill up the bag with ozone, we need to talk about dosing. Now there are 2 different variables when you're making a dose of ozone. There's the strength of it, or how strong it is, and there's the amount of it, or how much you have. So the amount would be either the 200 or the 400 ml. If I want 200, I pinch right here on the bag. If I want 400, I pinch right here. And if I pinch right here, it'll just fill up, and we'll show you that right to 200. Now there's also the strength of the ozone, or how strong the ozone gas actually is. And you're gonna change how strong the ozone is by the regulator. So the flow of the oxygen coming from the tank is actually gonna change how strong the ozone coming out of here is. On one side, you'll see settings 1 through 11, and that corresponds with the regulator right here. So there are settings 1 through 11 on the regulator. On this column, you're gonna see these numbers and it says UGML right over it. That's micrograms per milliliter, but that's just fancy words for how strong the ozone is. So 7 gamma, or micrograms per milliliter, is weaker than 75 gamma. So 75 is really strong, 7 is fairly weak. Now for ozone therapy, the rectal insufflation, typically people are choosing between 12 up to 45 gamma. And if you're just starting off with this, you always want to start on the lower side of things to ensure that you're reacting to it well, that there's not something that you don't know about that's going to pop up. So always start lower and work your way up as you go. Now, typically people would just do setting 7 or 8 on this regulator right here. So if you're not sure what you want to do, all you need to know is pinch off right here at 200 and set this regulator to setting 7. So now we're actually going to make some ozone gas. What I'm going to do first is turn my machine on. I'm going to do this to setting 7. Can you get a close-up of that? All right, so we have setting 7, and now we're pinching off right here on the bag. So this is actually going to be making 34 micrograms per milliliter, or 34 gamma. That's the strength of the ozone. That's how strong it is. 200 is the volume, so how much of it I'm going to have. So once this gets to a level that feels relatively full, you don't want to blow it up rigid like a balloon because that's going to make your bag start to tear at the seams here. You just want enough to where it's relatively full. Once you have enough ozone in this bag and you have your 200 ml, you're going to turn your regulator to 0. So my regulator is to 0. Now no more ozone is being made. I'm going to turn my machine off and I'm going to clamp my bag so that none of it escapes. I can let go of this because now it can just go into the bag. I already have my dose. I know how much is in there and we are good to go. Now we get down to the grimy details. This is the catheter. So this is the piece that's going to be inserted. I'm not going to show anything today, obviously, but this would go 3 inches into the rectum. Some people do use like a lubricant, like a oil or whatever you have around that you want to use. And this just goes 3 inches into the rectum. Now this attaches very easily to the ozone bag. So I'm just going to screw it on right there. Now let's pretend that this is where we want it to be, where the sun don't shine. So once we got that exactly where we need it to be, we're going to unclamp the bag just by pulling it like that. And then you're going to take your bag and you're just slowly going to roll it down. And this is going to start expelling the gas into the colon. Now, some people might have a little bit of discomfort. You might have some gas. And it's also important to note that you don't actually need to hold it for 30 minutes. And that's an interesting story because there was a program over in Germany where they were studying ozone and they were having people come into their clinic. And people would leave the clinic feeling like they didn't get a therapy, even though their biomarkers and the things were turning out positive. So what the doctors started having the people do was just hold the ozone gas for 30 minutes so that it was really uncomfortable. And they had the placebo effect in their mind of, oh, well, it's uncomfortable, so it must be good. So it's kind of perpetuated this idea that you really need to hold it for a long time. But ozone is so reactive, it reacts within milliseconds. So it starts a domino effect of positive things happening within just a few seconds. So hold it for 10, 15, 20 seconds. You're good to start expelling it then because it's already done its work. It's already reverted back into oxygen and you've created what you want. Once you've rolled down the bag, it's important to hold it because if you let go, a little bit of the gas is going to travel back into it. So just hold it down, pull this out, and you're good to go. Use the bathroom, do what you want to do. You can lay on your side while you're doing this. You can stand if you want to. It really doesn't matter. Whatever is most comfortable for you, and you should be all good. Now, as far as frequency, most people are doing what's called cycling. So they do every day for 3 weeks and then 1 week off. And that's typically if somebody's actually sick and they're trying to get rid of something and they're trying to reverse a chronic disease. So they'll do once a day for 3 weeks and then 1 week off. And then month 2, once they've done that for one cycle, they'll go to twice a day for 3 weeks and then 1 week off. Now on month 3, you never exceed twice a day. So you stay at that dose or that frequency, but you do continue that until you have the alleviation of the symptoms. And if you're on a maintenance schedule or you're an athlete, 2 to 3 times a week is normal. If you're a really avid athlete, you can just do kind of the regular schedule for ozone therapy at home.
You can either dispense of the catheter or clean it. To clean the catheter, first wipe it with toilet paper. Now draw off water into the syringe. Then you connect the syringe to the catheter and dispense the water down the drain to eliminate any waste. Now to sterilize the catheter, use hydrogen peroxide and draw it up with the syringe. Hook the syringe to the catheter and dispense the hydrogen peroxide through the catheter. This will kill and eliminate any organic material. Repeat as many times as necessary. Rinse and clean the catheter one more time with water. Dry the catheter with a paper wipe and store it using a sandwich bag or a wrap, and we are finished.
All right, well, that was how to do rectal insufflation at home. Again, not one of the most glamorous subjects to talk about, but pretty effective. If you want to know exactly what it's doing in the body, check out our other video about rectal insufflation. It's very helpful, very informative. We also have articles on drsozono.com that talk about the safety, that talk about what it is, how it works, and what it's doing in the body. I'm Micah, the Ozonaut, teaching you how to do ozone at home and find health.